Hello, this is our project, Sylvia Holland, Her Life and Impact at Walt Disney Studios. In this presentation, we hope to demonstrate both Holland's individual contributions to the projects on which she worked at Disney and her influence as a pioneering woman as she paved the way for other women in animation. This timeline shows how Holland's career and personal life intersected with relevant world events in a time where women's position in society was beginning to change. By looking at Holland's artwork, various academic sources, accounts of her by her contemporaries, and her own writings, we have constructed a comprehensive representation of Sylvia Holland at Walt Disney Studios and the impact she had that is still felt today.
Sylvia Holland was born July 20th, 1900 in Ampfield, England. While she was growing up in England, women campaigned for the right to vote in the United States. And on June 4th, 1919, the 19th Amendment was added to the U.S. Constitution, granting women that right. In 1925, Sylvia graduated from Architectural Association School and became the first woman to join the Royal Institute of British Architecture. In 1926, she married Frank Holland and they moved to British Columbia and had 2 children. But Sylvia became a single mother in 1927 when Frank died from an infection. Just a few years later, the Great Depression began in 1929, lasting until 1933. Sylvia moved her family to California in 1936, where she was hired at Universal Studios, but was laid off soon after because her department was shut down.
In 1937, as work was beginning on Fantasia at the Disney Studio, Sylvia saw the premiere of Snow White in Los Angeles and decided she wanted to work at Disney. In August of 1938, she met Walt Disney and he hired her on the spot. She began work on September 6th and was immediately assigned to Fantasia. In June of that year, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed, which regulated fair wages and hours on a national level. In December, Sylvia was assigned to the Nutcracker Suite, becoming the first woman to be a director of a sequence, although 2 other women, Ethel Colsar and Mary Goodrich, helped with different aspects of the assignment. Early the next year, Walt addressed the animation department over grumblings about women in the workplace, saying that women bring something to animation that men never could. A few months later, Retta Scott became an animator, evidence that Sylvia had helped set a model for successful women at the studio. Sylvia and her assistant, Ethel Colsar, were credited for their work after Sylvia advocated for herself and her team in a meeting, and on November 13, 1940, Fantasia was released in theaters. After Fantasia was finished, Sylvia began working on various story ideas for segments of a Fantasia sequel, a film that would take the same form as the first. On May 26th of the following year, the Screen Cartoonists Guild held a vote and a strike began at the Disney Studio, but Sylvia did not participate. Walt Disney departed from the studio for a trip to South America, but left Sylvia in charge of many projects. But with Walt gone and the studio in the hands of the strikers, Sylvia was laid off. She was rehired 4 days later when the studio doors reopened after a settlement. Then, on December 8th, the U.S. entered World War II.
After another round of firing and rehiring, Sylvia worked on storyboard drawings for Victory Through Air Power in 1942, and she continued to work on Fantasia 2 sequences, including Claire de Lune. She also worked on the early stages of the 2 Silhouettes and Greek Muses sequences of Make Mine Music. In April of that year, Sylvia was given a large project as well as a pay raise, which lifted her spirits. But on August 1st, 1946, Sylvia was laid off, as there was more trouble with the union, and this time she was not rehired. During the 1950s, Sylvia focused on becoming a commercial artist, doing projects for Macmillan's, Readers, and the Chrysant Card Company. Through the 1950s and 60s, she also began breeding Balinese cats and helped to establish the breed standard in the 1960s. Sylvia Holland died at the age of 74 on April 14, 1974, in Los Angeles, California. Her impact at Disney is still felt today, as she was one of the first women in a leadership role at the studio and opened that door for other women to follow in her footsteps.
Thank you for watching and listening to our presentation. We hope you enjoyed.